my brief to them and my commentary to them was, please follow 3 or 4 rules when you're here on the stage. Rule number 1, extremely honest conversation. Truth is the entry ticket to have walked up these 3 steps. So everyone signed up for that. So thank you. We don't just want to hear the right thing, we want to hear the authentic thing, what really happens. The second request was, be very firm in your conviction. Be very strong. Have a strong point of view. If you're making a comment, don't just say, it depends. Or sometimes I can do this and sometimes I can do this. Hold your belief and stay true to it. And explain it. That was the second piece. And the third request I made to them was, do not give us any academic information. Stuff like culture is good. Everyone can Google and see those words. Tell us real stories. What really happens on the ground? What's the reality at the workplace? What are the experiences you have? So those 3 were my, a little bit of an input to them. Everyone signed up for that. There was a little bit of a anxiety moment we had, shall we get that camera switched off? We had 1 minute of a debate to say we are all getting video recorded, and then everyone said no, it's all right. Truth is truth, and truth shall set us free. So it's in that spirit we're going to do this conversation. It's a very casual conversation, and we will have fun, so should you. Let me get started. With that, Shreejesh, I know you beat a lot of traffic to get here on time, and you were on time. So tell us, what's your view on culture? Okay, so this is also what happens in operating job. You think you are the hero and suddenly, life doesn't support you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Well, culture for me is a very long process where a lot of values are involved. And as an institution, you define few values. It's not that you can cover everything. So it takes time to cultivate that and bring it to everyone that yes, this is how we do it. It's not something that you can teach, but as values that you can cultivate and make people feel.
Right. And also tell us a little bit, what do you do? And in what part of your job do you really talk about values or culture? If at all.
Oh, well, we talk about values almost every day. As an institution, the first thing that we talk about, in fact, every day is a continuous learning process. There are only 2 choices. You do it and you do it. Because if you don't do that job, somebody else will do it. So for that matter, you have to be really comprehensive and keep having the spirit of continuous learning.
Right. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So Smriti, a little bit of what you do, and do you ever come across something called values and culture in your work life at all, or is it only you prepared all of that to come here today?
Thank you, Harlina. Sanjeev sir early on introduced me saying that one of the most expensive hospital. I'd like to start with that. Not that I'm defending that, but it talks about values and culture there. It's been 36 years that CIWEC hospital has been operating in Nepal and providing a world-class service of healthcare amongst the healthcare industry and competitors in Nepal. Now, why has it been able to successfully work for past 36 years? It's the same product. People are sick, people are being treated, the medical doctors are the same, the kind of treatment you provide is same. One thing that sets CIWEC apart is because of its values of providing compassionate and personalized care to each and every person who walks inside that door. Now that something is very difficult to replicate as well as teach. Like Shreejesh said, it's not something that you can teach to people. It has to be grown inside you. It has to cultivate inside you. And this is what we do at CIWEC. So I'm the head of HR at CIWEC, and I also look after business development. So cultural growth and how to make people aware of what our values are becomes a prime job of my forte at CIWEC Hospital.
All right, thank you for that. And Sanjeev, you stepped out at the moment when she said, for Sanjeev Subha, there is zero expense whenever you need any services at the hospital. So never worry about that. All right, Pranu, what's your take on the entire culture piece? Yes, and Standard Chartered has a very, it's an old bank, very global bank, glorious history. So is that influencing the way you think of culture?
Thank you. So we've heard a lot about culture, about its definition since the morning. So people like me who never really give it a serious thought on what culture is or what culture should be, I realize that it's something that is ingrained. We just need a little bit of awareness and realization of the importance of culture per se. Having said that, people give their own definitions and personal experiences. I'd like to probably start with my personal experience of what culture in my organization is. Being in the banking sector for the last 11 years, for bankers per se, we're in the service industry, let's say. And one of the prime agendas for us, or the prime motives or prime values for us is customer centricity. We believe in customer service. Though it's in your boardroom or you actually do it, that's for your own respective organizations, but at least we have this customer-centric thought process. So what happened in April 2015, the big disaster that struck Nepal? That was probably the turning point in all our respective lives of people who were here in Nepal at that point of time. And being a banker, and I look after a department which banks INGOs and embassies and aid organizations. And these were the organizations, the mobilizers for fund. When disaster struck the country, obviously everybody needed cash for that matter in remote places of the countries. And I could not be like sitting at home. At that point of time, I must share, I was a mother of a 4-month-old at that point of time. But it did not take me a second thought to kind of sit back and say, oh, maybe, there are other priorities. Obviously, I had to make sure my family was, protected and safe. But then I was at work the second day, on 16th April, I was at work. And nobody told me to do that. My manager, they did not call me. Obviously, I was a new mother and they wouldn't have done that, right? But it was something in me that, at that point of time, that made me, stand up, get up in the morning and just go to work. And not just me, I found my other colleagues and everybody, and nobody at that point was enforced or asked to go to work. So that probably is actual customer-centric culture. That's probably never written anywhere. It's not in our business continuity plans that if earthquake of that magnitude struck, because nobody expected something of that sort to happen. So I think that's where culture comes in. That's where your ingrained values come up. So that's one of my personal experiences that I...
No, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that little story. And this is what we've been talking about since morning. That culture truly is what do you do when nobody tells you what to do. It's what's really into your bloodstream, what's your true DNA. And that talked about that. So Nirajan, over to you. Tell me as the CEO, as a young CEO of life insurance company.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having us here. I feel really privileged and honored to be part of this discussion. And also thank you, NBI and Sanjeev, for a warm welcome. And if I have to define culture in one sentence, probably I would say, culture is something when people are not watching. That's what I say very popularly. You do things when your management is not watching. We do things when people are not observing you. You're not doing things so that people are going to appreciate you. Let me just give you one of the examples. I think we have heard of the stories of Southwest Airlines. In 1991, when Southwest Airlines was going through a severe fuel price crisis, the staff volunteered price cuts. They did not have to implement the strategy that we were going to cut the prices or the employee benefits and all those things. So culture is, I think, the collection of behaviors, that is culture. And when we have to define culture, I think we cannot neglect the fact that values play a really important role in driving that culture, because collectively, values drive behaviors, and behaviors collectively contribute to culture, and culture collectively will contribute to performance. So we kind of see that when it comes to running a business, at times we feel so many companies are coming up with very brilliant strategies, they have fine strategies, they want to go out in the market and they want to get the market share. That's what my strategy is. I don't really care about things. But the strategy probably will give you return for this year, but if you really want to have sustainable return over a period of time, number of years, you need to have good culture. And as this is a popular statement, I'm sure all of us know here, as Peter Drucker correctly said, that culture is strategy for lunch. So at times we kind of feel that if you have right strategy in place, everything will be taken care of. I'm going to make profit, my company is going to get me dividends, shareholders will be happy, as a CEO I'm going to get promoted. But eventually what happens, you might have short wins, but if you do not have right culture, and people may not feel like working for the organization. I feel suffocated to work for that organization, for example, because the collective culture is not good. My manager is not promoting the kind of open conversation in my organization. If I have to say something to my manager, I fear. I don't feel like saying, because if I say something, then I'll be caught. I don't want to promote that kind of environment. Never blossom where people will have their say, people will have the kind of ideas and thoughts. So if staff is feeling suffocated, probably you can have profit in short term, but eventually, I think your staff will leave you, and the moment they get opportunity, they'll not even think twice before leaving you. So for me, culture is everything. It matters to me, because as a senior management of the organization at such young age, because I represent millennials, and at times I feel whenever people see me, you are the deputy of the organization, and we kind of have, we have a habit of seeing somebody with gray hairs, or probably better wrinkled face in that position, and it becomes very hard for me to justify my position, and these are the things that I represent millennials at least.
Fair.
So
and I'll tell you,
me,
you're already threatening me, because everything that I say about culture, you have said it and said it better.
Yes,
so
for me, culture is everything. And for a young generation like us, I think we should believe in cultures. Yes. We should not be thinking that, okay, my board of directors is giving me a lot of pressure. Probably I should have that capability to take on that pressure and do things not at the cost of culture. Obviously, we want business, but not at the cost of culture. Right. So for me, culture is everything. That we need to nurture it.
Very well said. Very well said. Like that's brilliant. I mean, I could have said it better, and I say it so many times. So truly, for people like both of you, you're doing it. It's kind of coming true for you. So this question is for both of you, both the ladies on my right and left. Okay? You're also doing HR besides your BD and your OD role. People join your company. People also leave your company. Why do you think people are leaving your company? Is it for money or is it for the culture?
In my case, most people are leaving CIWEC because they get married to somebody in Australia. That's the reality, the harsh reality. We've had people who are still working with us for past 28 years. We have people who are still working with us for past 15 years. I myself, I've been there for past 12 years. And even today when I wake up and I'm ready to get to work, there's one question in my head all the time. What is something new that I can do at the office today? That I think is very different, Nobody has left because of money issue. They've all left because they see better perspective abroad. And that's a sad part of entire country today. Not just in my field, I guess, in banking field as well. But yes, the reality is they leave because they have husbands waiting in Australia.
And if people stay, what is going right in your company? Why do people stay so long?
I think let me share with you a story, okay, to connect you with this. When I joined CIWEC, my medical director, that's the topmost position that we have, is the medical director. So the medical director said, Smriti, why don't you come along? Let me show you how to talk with patients, because I had to start handling the insurance department. I said, okay. Went inside, she talked with the patient, and while she was coming out of the room, she picked up the dirty plate that the patient had already finished eating up in. She took it out, and she didn't just leave it out in the nursing station basin, She went up to the kitchen, which was 2 floors up, and kept it in the right place. I said, oh my God, that was my first introduction towards the value and culture of my organization. I said, I see. That was the time when I said, I will try my best to value other person's work. She was valuing a medical director who could be saving lives of somebody in the ER room. Thank God there was no ER, not to say that there were ERs there, but she was actually doing a housekeeping's job if it was to be seen from that angle. But she didn't stoop down, she didn't think that it was low enough for her. She did what was correct, and she did in a precise manner. So I think the big reason why staffs are staying back with CIWEC is because we are compassionate, not just towards the patient, but towards staff as well. We respect each other's job very, very much. We understand the pain and the areas that pinches them, and everybody's helpful, forthcoming and helpful. So I think those are the two big reasons why people like to stay back.
I heard you say some beautiful words: respect, compassion, not only for the patients but also for the people. So no, wonderful. And if you're actually living it, I can guess why people stay so long. Pranu, you've also been in Stancy, what, 12 years now? 11 years. What's making you stay so long? Why haven't you joined Citibank by now?
There's no Citibank anymore.
Oh.
No, jokes apart, yes. To think of it now, now that I've made to think over this concept already. Yeah. So if I say it won't be like an over definition, because it has been a training ground, and in a way it's also positive because that's how you shape the entire banking sector. Probably that's the way of Standard Chartered giving back to the banking sector of Nepal, willingly or unwillingly. So but then we've also had people who've said and who stated clearly that they're finding it difficult to adapt to a different work culture moving out of Stancy. Because Stancy, it's probably runs like a well-oiled machine because of the number of years that it's
I'll
been there.
stop you now before everyone else stops working with their own banks and start to bank with Stancy.
So yeah.
No, but thank you. Thank you. I mean, your passion is clearly shining through. You're also a client manager, so I'm very conscious of that. Shreejesh, couple of rapid fire questions for you. You're a business leader of NMB. Do you have values?
Yes.
Tell us a few of them.
I still say it's continuous learning. Second is empathy.
Okay.
And third, I would put up is more of ethical practices.
Okay, so empathy, continuous learning, ethical practices. So as a business leader, when you talk about these values to your leadership team or your people, I mean, how do you explain it to them? What do you want them to do?
In fact, I still, it's very difficult to say like these are the values and you can define how you can do it writing in a piece of paper. But what you do is like you practice that within the institution. There are people here. So when I started my career, I just want to add a few things. When I started my career, then the CEO of the institution said, I was just a management trainee, just completing my the trainee period around 6 months, and I took a few things. Luckily, got a chance to meet him and said like, probably you have to take the decision. I don't know. So he said, aren't you confident? I said, yes, I'm confident. So why not? So he said like, in career, the first thing that you need to see is like you need to be CEO of your job.
Right.
First thing.
CEO of your job.
CEO of your job. And second thing, what he immediately said was, bad things happen in life. So bad things happen. Be prepared for the worst. So in between, you have to be really comprehensive to take that decision. That is very much important. So empathy, there are a couple of cases. There are people joining here from my institution. Well, I always tried, not as a CEO, even as a unit head or department head, any job that came into the office, I never said it was not mine. So we practice in the institution that what we are not supposed to do. Those are the list.
Right.
All remaining are the jobs that you have to do.
That's such a great way of putting it. I've never thought of it like that. But yes.
So
yes.
this is
penny drop.
I can wholesomely say this. There are people around in this forum who have practically experienced this.
And that's the amount of confidence you have
Yes.
in whatever
Yes.
they may just say.
Yes.
Perhaps when we see the questions,
yeah,
we
probably
will
from
get
the audience
this.
itself. They can say that. Even people putting up the paper, clearly said like, yeah, as a boss, I could be a very cruel boss when it comes to deadlines, when it comes to the work. But when even they have put up the papers, it's not because that it will be difficult for the institution to replace that. Maybe sometimes, you go with the flow and you just think I could be right, I'm putting up the paper. So what I always tell them is I could be a very good mentor for your next career. If you want to put up a paper, you put up a paper, no problem. But before that, just come to my place, have a good discussion, so that if I see that the career is brighter on the side, I'll let you go. And this is what we're
doing the right thing for your people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's very difficult to write it down in paper and say it's very situational and many a time. So it's something that you practice every day in your work life.
I'm going to ask you a counter question on that. You said that twice. So that is a little provocative for me. You said writing it down is difficult. Today we have Shreejesh in this operating leader position. You have learned well, you're a great leader, you do the right thing. But as a business leader, one of your key jobs is to institutionalize the way your businesses work. So whether you exist or not, the practices should stay the same. Agree?
Yes.
So if you don't write anything down, if you don't train people, if you don't really build a process around it, what happens the day you take 1 month off?
Well, our punchline clearly states, we just finalized, we just changed recently. I'm not saying it's like a brand book where you write everything.
Right.
The 3 words that clearly speaks about ourselves, and we need to practice that every day. Seasoned, comprehensive, and prudent. So being in the financial industry, these are the 3 words all who join NBI Capital have to, practice that every day.
Right. Seasoned, prudent, and...
Seasoned, comprehensive, and prudent.
Prudent, I see. So that's the core principles that you want everyone. Okay, so you do have them documented. It's not completely...
No, it's not
up in
completely...
the air.
So what all you have to say as seasoned, it's very difficult to say. It comes with years of experience. It's largely situational. So comprehensive, again, I said, continuous learning. There are so many factors in build. So it's very difficult to write everything. The process is dynamic.
Are very different situations. Are very
So the mentors really need to practice that every day.
Fair enough. That piece I completely get. So thank you. Thank you so much. So Nirajan, the next question is for you. At lunch, you kind of mentioned you're dabbling in culture and you want to do some discussions and conversations. It's very rare that I come across such a young person as you who wants to engage in a conversation in your workplace about culture, values, behaviors. So what's really going on in your office?
I just want to share with you that I was in banking industry for a long time. I used to work for the same organization with Pranu is working with. So for me, insurance industry is completely new. I have been part of banking for almost 12 years. And I bumped into insurance industry, which is not planned. So I just joined because I wanted to learn new things. Because in banking, I thought that my learning curve was pretty much flat. So if I join insurance industry, probably I'll start from zero, and that's where I get the opportunity to relearn and unlearn things. And the moment I joined the industry, I kind of realized that you asked me to become honest. I'm being very honest over here. I kind of felt difference in terms of environment, the kind of people, the kind of mindset. Down the line, you will be working with robots. It might happen. So we need to have that ability or capability to adopt with not only with humans, but artificial intelligence, or probably we're already using some of the robots, not in the form of human kind of a form, but we need to have that capability to adopt with changing technology so that we do not really resist when it comes to adopting with new technology, and that's where the opportunity is. So, and we want to drive that kind of behavior not only to our people, but our employees as well, so that they adopt that technology is moving, so we need to adapt accordingly. So we're kind of building that kind of conversation in the company, and we're also trying to do new thing. I mean, not completely new, but different thing in this market. We thought that the values and culture should be part of performance discussion, because at the end of the day, if you're only tracking your performance in terms of numbers, people will only run after numbers. So, okay, let's have that qualitative factors also in that performance parameters. So that kind of conversation is already there. So now people are not talking only numbers. When in monthly discussions, performance discussion, or yearly performance discussion, they will not only talk about the premium size. They will also talk about, so I have made almost 100 people aware this month. This is one of the major KPIs for me.
Absolutely wonderful.
So these are the things that we're trying to promote in our
brilliant. Like I said, absolutely wonderful. Every word worth its weight in gold. saying values is not just something that you're talking about, it's something that people need to experience, and if you're putting it in your performance management appraisals as well, it can only go upwards, up north. So Smriti, that gives me a lead-in for a question for you. You know, when you were having those lunch conversations with me, you thought it's a friendly conversation, but I picked up lots of, sneaky things to ask you. There are some companies, not yours is good, who just, have these values and they hire people and they tell them these are the values in the induction session, into what? Learning session, and then everyone forgets about it. Why, do you think that happens? And if it happens, why? And do you want to do anything about it?
Yes and no both. I'll be honest about that.
It depends.
It depends. It depends, again, on how fast you want to go to Australia or how long do you want to stay back in Nepal, basically. See, we have a huge number of nursing team working in hospital. And unfortunately, in Nepal, there are only female nurses. There are no male nurses. So what happens is these female nurses get married to somebody staying in Australia and the prospects are very high over there. And so that's how they make their career abroad. But do people remember values and do they stick to it? It's a very, very tough question. And it's actually a challenge that all management people are facing right now. I think the rest of the team would agree with me in this. In a generation of millennials, generation X, Y, Z, I don't know which one it is now anymore, but this is the group for which to convince them with conviction and say, here's a company that can help you grow and that can make you shine is a huge challenge for organizations. You should be able to sell yourself as well out there. So when you talk about, let's say a 21-year-old nurse comes inside my hospital and you say, look, you need to be really compassionate, you need to care for your patient, you need to be very gentle. All she has in mind is, what are the technical skills I can learn from this organization? I have 1 year deadline, I'm going to get married and I need to go. So how are you going to make sure that this person absorbs that and then practices that in real world, in real job that she does, is a very, very challenging thing.
Yeah.
But those that have been staying in the organization for a long time, the mentors, the leaders, the managers, the owners, I think the most important, the topmost level of the company, these are the people who actually hold the main anchors to the values and the culture of the organization. If they are practicing the same values day in and day out, and if it is their habit, the others below them have no choice but to follow the same thing. That's why I think when you have great leaders in an organization, the organization blossoms, It just grows because everybody's just working towards the same goal. And like Shreejesh said, sometimes it cannot be written, sometimes it cannot be in your induction program and your orientation sheets. It's much more like it can be felt, it can be experienced, it grows inside you. And like Pranu said, nobody tells you to do or not do things, but you do it because that's the value you hold. So I'd say it's a challenging thing, yes and no, both ways.
No, fair enough. And you know what, all of you, I'm going to induct you into my culture army. It's beautiful. This is like all music to my ears. Wow, very rarely do I hear this conversation in any part of the world. So there you are. So I have to make my questions tougher now. So this one is for you, Pranu. Amongst four of you, you are the one who represents or works in a global multinational company. All of you are from Nepal, right? Based. So your viewpoints are different. The things that you learn and hear are completely different. If there's one thing you could give as a suggestion to three of them in terms of the way they should work or not work, what would that be and why?
Okay, now this is something that has recently happened. In Standard Chartered, there has been a change in the HEM, also locally as well as the global CEO, the entire management team. So what used to happen earlier was that we had this set of values written down. You have to be courageous, you have to be set of values. But starting last year, what has happened is those values have been replaced by something called valued behaviors. Mm-hmm. Values are more like, could be relative, and how you interpret it depends on an individual. But now what the organization has done is, it has, written down valued behaviors. Rather than saying what is to be done, it now prescribes how is this to be done. Now, Sanitary is famous for its manuals, and we were just chatting during lunch. Everything has to be black and white. So similarly, this has also been put in black and white about the valued behaviors, and the kind it has been embedded into the organization. Is
Can you tell us one?
Yes. For example, doing the right thing. Whether it's for your customers or it's for your employees, it has to do with integrity. For example, if I being a frontliner, there have been moments, and I'm sure most of the salespeople would agree, the margin versus sustainability kind of a situation. Whereas you might increase the rate for a certain thing for instant profits, but that vis-a-vis a long-term relationship with the client, which is obviously going to go, it's going to adversely affect your relationship with the client. So those kind of things, so whether you're treating customers fairly. And then the second one is never settle, which obviously means you do not settle for the second best. You try to do new things, you try to improvise your processes and things. So the way it has been embedded in the organization is that directly evaluation of your performance. For example, my target says I'm going to achieve so and so, dollar, whatever, in terms of revenue. But then the other second thing is that how will you use your valued behaviors? There is a proper, you have to justify in terms of how you're going to treat clients, how you're going to treat your subordinates, your colleagues. So in that way, even if you like it or not, these valued behaviors have become a part of your life. And even when you're, with the salespeople, they have this stiff with operations, and risk, we have our own challenges. And then when we are telling something to credit or risk or operations,
I hear the pain in your voice. You're a salesperson for a bank, right? Yeah, I know. The perennial fight with credit and risk. But give us a direct answer to the question I asked. What is the recommendation you have for three of them? What do they need to do more of?
See, coming from a company which has been there and which has its, rather than, obviously you've all spelled out your values and everything, but my humble recommendation would be to chalk out how it is to be done. An employee which would come to you and you would say, see, empathy is my value for that matter. But then how do you expect that person to empathize while he's on his current role? I'm sure you're doing it, but because I've been offered to asked to offer a recommendation. So how are you going to do it? For example, better together, or doing things along with your other colleagues, and then getting the interest of everybody together. Those kind of things are how you empathize, how you step into the shoes of other people. You have to make it a bit more concrete, probably.
I hear you, and that's also the challenge I see across the world. People have a value, let's say innovation. But innovation for a CEO means completely different than what it means for a teller. A CEO will think of new geographies, growing the business, acquiring new talent, that is innovation. But for a teller on the window of a bank, it means just being nice to customer or trying to meet the person requesting the cash in a different manner, so to say. So yes, they have to be written out and documented. So thank you for that, and I hope you took that recommendation she humbly made in the right spirit. So Shreejesh, over to you. As a business leader, you toggle many balls. There are many balls up in the air. You're trying to hire people, you're trying to grow the business, you're trying to be a good leader, you're trying to support the community, the NBI, the culture of the country and all of that. At times, things are not very good. There are business pressures. And push comes to shove. What is it that you will absolutely stop doing? What will you not look at? Out of all this that you normally do.
Well, last 15 years in the industry.
15 years in the industry? I thought you had spent 4 or 5 years only working. Okay.
So for last 15 years, I would say, in fact, I don't know how it got embedded in me, but I always feel that, that I at least said before one of my bosses or the head of the institution, he said bad things or bad luck happens in life,
Yep.
So, in fact, I didn't plan to be a CEO at the age of 31. I was given a job one day, probably you have to do it. So in fact, I just got, I just panicked. In fact, what? I was yet to be a father, biologically, but I need to be a father of many.
Right.
So, in fact, I said I need a week time to decide. So I said no.
Okay.
So in fact, I was not prepared. But as an institution, they thought like probably you can do it. You know.
That's been honest.
And then I just went back and thought like, why did they?
Pick me up.
So in fact, every other guy was saying at the front, probably you're the right one. So leaving a big bank and starting a very small institution. And for last 8 years, having a wonderful journey, placing ourselves as a front runners, probably not in terms of profitability, but in terms of value-driven and the good businesses. I think you should be prepared for all the bad lucks that may happen. So just don't look back. Just don't look back. Try to do the best that you can.
No, it's a great answer. It's a very politician type answer, but it's a true answer. I do know that. I do know that because things will happen and then you just deal with it and you still keep all the right balls up in the air. Let the insignificant go smashing.
You have no choices. Like,
Right.
You have to convince the board
Right.
on the decisions as a CEO that you have to take. And the plumber who is fixing the tap.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Two extremes.
Right, right.
So if you just try to, like jumble up everything and try to, get involved in all the process, sorry, it just cannot happen.
Yes,
Period.
I got.
Full stop. Move ahead.
Right. So no, thank you. I think that's a good answer. It's an honest answer with vulnerability and complete truthfulness. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you the last question, Nirajan, and then open it up for the people. The question for you is, it's the beginning of the year. Your HR has come to you and said you must start doing these coffee conversations with some groups of people in your company. You only have time to do conversations with 2 types of group. Who would that group be and why?
If I have that opportunity to have conversation with 2 groups, I think it's a bit difficult one, but I think being a person, I always believe in learning, and that's where you get most of the things. So I would rather have conversation with somebody with whom I can learn so many things, probably my CEO, because me is from different industry, basically has spent almost 12-13 years in investment banking, so I don't have that exposure. So I would rather, I'm willing to invest some time with him so that I can get some understanding, principles and all those things about investment, portfolio management, what is happening in Nepal, what kind of mutual funds available, all those things. And the second conversation that I would want to have with somebody I have very less opportunity to talk to. Probably some upcountry branch managers, because I have been brought up in Kathmandu and I have spent most of the time in banking, so I don't know their perspective. I just want to share some, just last month I have been to many places in Nepal, from far west to far east. If I had not joined this company, probably I would not have that opportunity to go, because there's no job to go that places. And when I reached that place, I used to think that Nepal is a very remote place, and you go to Ilam, it's a village, and lifestyle is a kind of village, people on all those things. But I was surprised to see how developed people were, and the kind of thought process, development, infrastructure everywhere. And when I started having conversations with branch managers and the people out there, and I used to say, why you're not being able to bring in business, because some other branch is getting this much of business, but you are not being able to do that. But the differences of culture, differences of mindset and all those things, the remittance growth of that village matters when it comes to business, the cultural thing and how people think. If this is a particular month, people do not want to buy any policies, that sort of thing. So first, I think I look up to somebody with whom I can learn things. And the second is getting to have that different perspective altogether. So talk to somebody, but I've never had an opportunity to have that kind of discussion.
No, I completely understand and agree. I think that's beautiful. You get to talk to people who intellectually stimulate you or give you new inputs and learnings. And the second is your country manager, as you said, which gives you an opportunity to tour the Nepal and more importantly get a feel of different perspectives and cultures. So yes, kudos to that. With that, I'm going to take a little pause and allow all of you to think through your question that you want to ask any of them and put it in your slide. So please prepare for a flood of questions. Since morning, every time we give out that invitation, there are about 30-40 things which get typed, which will come on the screen, so we shall see.
Slido CC019.
Slido.com #CC09 or 19?
019.
019.
Okay, here's already one.
Okay. So we may have to get up a little bit and see. How can we measure values embedded in our employees through performance appraisals? So why don't you take that, Nirajan? You kind of alluded to that, saying now you're beginning to put values in your performance appraisal. So how are you able to gauge?
This is one of the most difficult jobs in every organization, basically, because this is not objective sort of thing. It does not translate into numbers. For example, if you have X amount of target and you have achieved 90% or 80%, so it's very easy for you to translate into metrics. So your performance appraisal will definitely easily portray that. But when it comes to values, at least I can relate this answer of this question, because when I used to work with Standard Chartered Bank, and we always had that subjective and objective sort of thing. So 70% is going to be your numbers, the targets that you need to achieve, which we can translate in numbers form, right? And 30% is more of subjective, it's a behavioral aspect, as Pranu just touched upon. It's how you're going to drive your behavior, and whether as a manager, not only as a subordinate, as a manager, whether you have been able to provide justice to your employees. As a manager, you're also accessed, because you cannot do anything that you want, and there's something called whistleblower, speak up sort of thing. So I think the best way to, first of all, I think there has to be proper understanding and coaching of values. Because if you put values as one of the metrics in your organizational, performance metrics, and eventually you really don't understand it, and people are not on the same page.
Right.
So that's going to create mess and chaos. So the first thing that we need to do, I think this is one of the ice-breaking conversations that we're having, and I'm sure that this is going to give a right course for the corporate sector of Nepal. I think this is the first time we're having this kind of discussion in Nepal, and we really need to thank NBI for that. So we need to have this kind of sessions, interactions, so that we get to know what values, and once we understand value, once we are on the same page, and probably we can set aside certain percentage so that managers at helm, they will not manipulate things when they're judging, because most of the time there's no objective parameters to judge value. It's more of subjective as a manager, whether you are biased or not.
Of course.
If you're a victim of bias, probably whatever judgment that you make at the end of the day doesn't make sense.
Correct.
So I would say, first of all, before having the values in that performance metrics, we need to have proper understanding and coaching among entire people of the organization. Then only we can think about this.
That's why we are very confident of passing on the baton to younger people like you. You seem to be not only saying the right thing, but truly believing in the right thing. So yes, well done and kudos. So the second question is also for you, Nirajan, but we'll wait to give you a break. The third one is, does your organization adopt mentorship programs? How has it helped in engraving the culture in the employees? You want to take that, Pranu? Do you have a mentorship program?
Yes.
Go for it. And you think of an answer for that anonymous
So, as I said, everything in black and white yet again. We do have a mentorship program wherein we have something called the talent pool, where the young, maybe not very young, but then the mid-level and even the new entrants, they're identified by manager, the top management and the HR, and they're placed in a pool, and then they're assigned individual mentors, from the executive committee. And these mentors are responsible not just for their, official work, but they can also share their personal issues, their personal problems, in a way a friend at work, a guide at work for that matter. And I've had the opportunity to be in that pool for a few years now. And the kind of conversations that I have with my mentor, it's not just about work, and it has really helped me develop me as a fuller individual, I should say. In the sense that even if I'm having some personal issues at home, which obviously are inevitable, and especially if I may, the hashtag maternal wall, after that I had a huge, work kind of an issue. So there was a at that point of time, this mentorship program has really helped me personally, because I wasn't even sure if I wanted to like continue work or not.
Right.
So I mean, it has that sort of importance, you know, mentorship. It's like
Yeah, so that's a good example of how strongly a mentorship program works, and it's not just about performance or work. It can help you in many other areas, and then culture builds. I want to give a little bit of an insight and a special request to all our men leaders here, everyone in the crowd. I have heard recently in Nepal with the Me Too movement. With the Me Too movement, there was a beautiful culture of coaching and mentorship between the men leaders and the women employees. But last couple of months, all of you seem to have withdrawn. You're scared to spend perhaps time on one-on-one conversations, which are especially non-work related. So little request, don't back out. Just find a smarter and a more process-centric way to continue doing it. Just a Me Too should not completely scare you all off and back you away from doing the right thing. We still need you to be the sponsor of the entire concept of gender diversity and inclusion and all of that. So I just, it was my opportunity to put that one-liner in. So thanks so much. Let's